Special good morning to everyone listening to Classic Radio 105.5, 105.9. Yeah, good morning to you, those of you who are viewing us via GBN TV. Whether you're viewing Channel 7, Channel 11, Channel 20, good morning to you and welcome. It's Monday, August the 26th. 2024, folks, and I'm your host, GT. Guess you know that by now. Let me say good morning to Mr. Sylvan McIntyre with us this morning once again. Good morning to you, sir. How you doing?
Hey, good morning to you, GT, and let me just say a pleasant good morning again to all our listeners, our followers, our viewers, our well-wishers, everybody. Pleasant Monday morning to you. It's getting to the end of the year.
Yeah.
The reality.
Imagine just the other day we say, welcome to August 1st, right?
We did.
Welcome as August 1st.
And we are saying 1 month after burial.
1 month after burial.
And then,
now we are about to say August is going to be history.
Yes.
The memory of it, Carnival and everything else that came in between. In a matter of days, you're going to say the history. Just remember, just the memory of August 2024.
Yeah, I think they're about doing, like last year, they did a very rapid after-action review from after Carnival. Mm-hmm. I think this year they might be doing similar.
So as soon as after a review.
Yeah, so as soon as that is through, I guess Carnival will be out looking to 2025.
Yeah, so that might wonder, small island as we are, Grenada, why it takes so long to get a review done? I think that can be done in a matter of days, after any particular event that has been hosted.
So that's the problem.
Why we need a week and 2 weeks?
So let me tell you what's the problem. Because it's a small island. There isn't. The thing about it is that people say that we are very relaxed. Mm-hmm. The volume at which things flow, it sometimes doesn't drive us to want to make sure that we push. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we get into that kind of relaxed state of mind that we feel that everything could be left for the next couple of days.
As the proper word, we get complacent.
We get complacent. And I don't want to say people are lazy, but there are sometimes that people really don't get. Let's take, for instance, you submit a document that could go through. For a typical example, a passport.
Yeah.
Remember, passport used to take months and sometimes years before you get it?
Sometimes 3 months, 6 months before.
How much
when you make the
background
submission.
Checks does one require to do before you find out whether or not somebody's
it has improved, eh? It has improved
tremendously.
Significantly.
Well, I think with the moving time where the
technology and so forth.
The technology and the people understanding that a passport didn't need to sit down there, somebody apply, you look through it to do a background check electronically or otherwise. Mm-hmm. That happens in a matter of hours or days.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't be taking you all that well. And they found that out. As a matter of fact, they expressed it, that there was no real need for passports to have stayed so long. So I think the issue of reviews not taking place in quick time and things that are done rapidly. For instance, you submit an application, it goes on somebody's desk.
Yeah.
They put it in a file, they put it in the entry, it stays in the entry for a while, then it goes maybe pending, and that's why pending. And something comes on, I just go. So people don't sometimes generate that, let's go, it on my desk, let me do it now. When it gets left
I
for
can give you a story. I can give you a story. So I submitted an application for a particular entity here, and it has gone to the manager because I've spoken to an employee.
Right.
And the employee told me the reason for the manager not looking at the application because he didn't get notification from Gmail. Could you imagine that? I mean, I'll beat a little joke about it, but this is serious. This is serious.
Yeah.
I didn't get a notification. He told the employee, well, he didn't get a notification from this Gmail account.
Right.
So those are the reasons for him not looking at it. After the employee may have asked him, well, so and so had sent an application for a process to be taken care of, something to be taken care of. And he said he didn't do it because he didn't get that notification.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't say you're not checking your emails until you get a notification, which I find was a kind of lame excuse.
Yeah,
anyway.
a very lame excuse.
Lame excuse anyway. But.
The other thing I find, GT, is that we speak about the experience and the older people and the younger ones with technology, and I don't find we find the best mix how to get them to coexist. And I listened to a story from someone maybe about 2 months ago where they said they sent a request by email to Grenada from abroad.
Yes.
And they got a response through snail mail, the post office. And the person was inquiring.
And it was sent via email.
And it was sent via email. I was like, well, I didn't. And the people were saying, well, we did send you a response. When he inquired, the individual said, they sent it through regular post. And I was like,
In this day and time, right?
In this day and time?
This time where technology is...
I say that's some like a good thing that Uriah Salim could put in a comedy or something. I mean, you want to put something like this.
But
no?
you sometimes part of a comedy shows, you probably could have that scripted, you know? Have that scripted.
I had my little laugh about it, you know. So
it's interesting, you know, but it just, I mean, the conversation just came up because, you know, the way things are done sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
And it could lead a lot to our conversation this morning also.
Into
the process, how things are done.
Yeah. Before you roll into that, though,
I mean, we're not going to get into it yet, but I'm just saying in matter of how things are done.
Yes.
You know, there are things can be done promptly.
Yeah.
And there are things, yes, that you need to take time and go through the process of it, which I will understand.
Yeah.
Because you want to get it right.
Right.
You understand? But sometimes things that could be do 1, 2, 3 and have it taken care of. It goes through the entire
process of undue bureaucracy. I followed one of the new processes of the new administration, the government currently, and the focus is on paperless processes. And the process of, you know, responding to issues and so on, again, even electronically, it takes a couple seconds. You sit there and you focus your time, and this is what I want to do. The emails are there, the response are there, you read through them, and you respond immediately. You do the response. So that takes almost little or no time. But I think it has to do, again, as we started, with attitude and aptitude towards what people do.
Yeah.
And when you function, in my opinion, in a very relaxed environment, the issue of complacency around you can step in very easy. And so it leads to inefficiency. It leads to further frustration of those who are supposed to be beneficiaries and those who are supposed to be receiving the kind of service that we know we're supposed to do. But again,
time is money to me.
At the end of the day, we believe that monitoring, evaluating, and supervisions, it leaves a lot to be desired as to how we get the end product. And there are a lot of people who do not follow through on what they're supposed to do. You have a lot of people, let's say younger people who are in the systems, and they sometimes are not aware of the urgency of something or what time means. And because some people may have gone through and understand the essence, time means money and otherwise, you need to be able to follow through. And when people understand, well, this supervisor is going to be at me in a matter of seconds. He's going to ask me, or she's going to follow through on me. It gets you into the mood of proper and timely production. So we need more of that. We need more people who assume responsibility as managers and supervisors to follow through and don't leave things to be done on its own or expected to be done. You must cause the process to give you the end product that you want.
Yes. Because if you relax yourself as a supervisor manager, it's only obviously who's beneath you is also going to follow.
They're going to breed from you.
Yeah, he's the manager. He's taking his time. I can take my time too.
Yeah.
And just a simple conversation. You know, I'm going to take my time if he's taking his time, and that's it. So let's know a lot's been happening for the last week or two. Let's say not the week or two, but the last couple of days has happened. What's some major events that have taken place? If you could highlight some.
Yeah, well, we had the rain for sure, which was welcome, and we had the thunder, which brought some butterflies in some people's stomach, and they thought, well, oh my God, are we going to be going through something?
What's happening there?
But what I found with the recent experience with the rain, the thunder, etc., that as normal, people become more in tune with what's happening. They're inquiring from the Met Office. They're even calling GBN or they're calling NADMA, find out what's happening, what's there, what's on the horizon, and people are getting themselves in a mood of, in the event it happened, how can we do it differently? That's true. And on the other hand, we looked at the progress in Grand Etang again. Last week we started at the end of our program. And it is something that we committed ourselves. We're going to speak about almost on every program until we see that kind of an improvement. So maybe what we're going to do one of these days, GT, we're going to probably walk up to Grand Etang and put a white mark on the ones we think that need prioritizing, because we think that they're working on some of these corners or bends, and we think that those that are already blind, that needs urgent attention.
I looked at it myself, and I think there's some that could take a little more attention that it's already been given.
Yeah.
You understand? There's some can take a little more attention. It still has that, as we were saying in regular term, that's what we call a blind corner.
Right.
Even though some work has been done at it, there's not enough.
Right.
You know, some more attention could have been given to it, just to make that ease of use for road users, especially for the upcoming and the upcoming, of course, driver coming your way. You know, it's still considered a blind corner. So I think some work could be done on it.
And last week we mentioned a little bit in terms of what has been done. We said that some of the corners, they are creating belly and some slopes on them. And we did see a geotechnical person or that kind of engineer
should have been there.
Should give the heavy duty operators some kind of a guidance. I don't know if that is done, but we think that a lot more could be gone into it to mitigate some of the slippage that are likely to occur.
Right.
And so the benching that we spoke about, or terracing as you sometimes call them, you need to put sometimes the mesh on some of these rocks that are the soil type as you examine. Some of it will shale. Others are a bit more firm, like the loam type soil that is more firm. And sometimes you have the rocky type tiff that you can terrace those easier.
Yeah.
But there are some of those that definitely need to put mesh on them because they are unstable and they're going to keep sliding.
Any of those considerations have been put into the first?
It has a cost associated, so we're hoping that the small step that we are seeing will be a continuation.
Yeah.
And while the road itself is become widened, the corners are becoming more safe. They're using the backfill from those slides to put on the opposite side, which gives a sort of a buffer. And the boulders that they're putting to give a bit of rail, that too is a bit comforting. So we want to give credit where credit is due.
It could be hazardous too, to a point. I mean,
before you go into the hazard, allow me to just say that we want to commend the Ministry of Works for the initiative. But we think it should go on much further. And yes, as you mentioned, you have to balance the risk generally as to whether you're creating further hazard with the boulders, because people can run into them, or based on where they're placed, they can roll off and create further damage or otherwise downstream. So it's a holistic thing, but generally I think what I'm sure that we want to really commend the undertaking in the area, brought on I think by Beryl to an extent, and the pressure that we're putting on every Monday.
We've been talking about it for a wee bit,
for a while.
And we had some callers who also spoke about it.
Yes,
showed their interest in terms of who said, they knew it being like that for years.
Yes.
You understand? And we're happy for what's been done. Anything that's been done to improve situations, if anyone would show some appreciation for that. You understand? But as you mentioned, we should have the engineering part put into it, not just allowing a contractor to go in and do his thing under his own feelings. So sometimes he may not know he may have an idea, but sometimes that technical field may not be all impacted in what he knows. You understand? So there were people from the different ministry and so forth should be in there and offer some level of advice on a really serious technical thing. So this is for the long haul, not just a temporary solution.
Absolutely. So as we speak on the whole aspect of risk reduction in that very same area, it is something I want to mention that applies to a few places around Grenada. One is the tree covering. I mean, we understand what that means to the rainforest.
Yes.
And how you can groom and control those. That's one, how it impacts on the road surface in terms of the mold and everything else that could create a slippery surface. The other thing I want to mention is the aspect of that type of physics as you drive through, the aspect of centrifugal and centripetal forces. And these are forces that will pull you in and away from the corners. So there's one corner, especially when you come up the Black Forest, just on the end where I think there's a nursery on the top side. I've seen a few accidents there, and I know definitely...
On a regular too?
Regular. Now, inexperienced drivers would encounter that process because you'll have the centrifugal force, and the centrifugal force, I think, is the one that pulls you in. The centripetal will take you away. And so if you approach that corner with too much of speed, the force will pull you in the opposite direction. If you're coming from the top side and you do not slow sufficiently, that force is going to pull you further to the opposite side of the road. And when people tend to rapidly pull across because of the lack of experience, the vehicle ends up on the opposite side, down in the ditch. I've seen that a couple of times. So where I'm going with this is that there are places that we need to put signs up that says dangerous corners, slow down. And these are the zigzag signs that you can put that would show road users that that corner is one that you need to approach with more caution than usual. So we know for sure across our streets and roads there are insufficient road signs and safety signs that would guide people as they go around. And we recognize and mention through our program that the process of giving people license to drive on the road, it needs a lot it needs to be revamped technically.
Reviewed a bit.
Reviewed, and so preparing people to drive is not getting them to do the sticks and to do a 3-turn or
a 2-pointer,
3-point turn, etc., or to just reverse and move off on a hill. But there are a lot of other dynamics on the road that people need to be prepared for. And this is why we're going to advocate that through our systems, that people could go on to further do defensive driving and expansive driving. And even we want to advocate for learning to drive during the night. So our laws in modern day should be revised to the point where it gives people the permission to practice or drive at night. Our law still speaks to 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Mm-hmm. And otherwise...
That's in terms of when someone is in the learning process?
In the learning process. And if you want to teach people beyond that, there's permission that is given through the driving schools or otherwise that you can teach people during the other types of day. And that has been modified over years.
Yeah.
So what we're thinking that there could be a further expansion on that. There are different techniques that people need to be aware of. Driving at night is different than driving in the day. And while you would want people to get the experience to develop, to become that better driver, during that time there could be so many more accidents that could occur. And if you take the time to drive them to that point or get them to that point where you can do those extra courses or those extra classes that would prepare you generally for on the road. So there are a lot of things that you would not do because you're paying $30 or $50 per class. People want to maximize on that. Get the class in, get the people to get the license, and done.
And done with that.
That's it.
Next individual.
But so we have to find a process of preparing people more to drive safely on our roads. Yeah. And the expansion of that through the Safer or Asher McIntyre Road Safety Foundation, what we want to be able to do, as we said, is to culture the younger people from school. And we spoke about teaching children to drive before getting on the road. So they understand the safety factors, they understand how dangerous and how safe a vehicle could be. So even as they grow up, rather than trying to just get the experience or take or steal a car themselves to do it. How many young fellas did that?
Yeah, I'm guilty.
So you want to be able to get them to that point where you can show them the dangers and the safety of it before they even get. So as they grow, they are now cultured into understanding the safety mechanisms and the danger that could happen if you.
I like the idea that you give. I think it could be done in an extra process after you have gained your license, or maybe before you get the official to-go license.
Right.
So you may go do the sticks, the 3-point turn and whatever, drive up the hills and stop, whatever they do as a regular license.
Right.
But the defensive license part should be the final stages of you getting your license that give you that full permission that you can become a full driver on the road. And that's the final part. And maybe if you're not able to pass that for some reason, you still have to go through that process. It becomes the final stage of getting your license. That could happen. Because there are a lot of drivers on the road who does not understand the defensive driving part of it.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
There's a lot of drivers on the road.
And they think because you have the right of way, that you should go right away.
Exactly.
And you should not use good judgment and discretion to allow somebody, for safety measures, to yield your right away to the other person because you realize it could have created an accident.
Sometimes I experience it too. Sometimes you're at the traffic lights. It happened to me just yesterday. And you're approaching the driver. It may be on green, but does it mean that you have to drive fast to pass it? Yeah. And the drivers behind you who are constantly blowing you because they feel, well, yes, you're on green, so you're supposed to just speed up.
Yeah, especially when it gets to amber.
Exactly.
They think it's a time when you need to just speed up.
But even though it's in green, doesn't mean that you have to go beyond the speed limit.
At all.
And a lot of drivers, I've noticed a lot of drivers, because it's on green, they feel you should just speed off, going beyond the speed limit because and then they're behind you blowing you in annoyance. You understand? So that might have the option of just pulling on the side. I say, you pass, because I don't think the necessary speed we're going to, despite the speed you're going at, you're going to get to your destination. You understand?
Yeah.
I've been noticing that happening on the roads a lot.
So even that aspect of psychological readiness for the road, it's something that should be incorporated in the driving process, where people would, because people would get anxious because a big truck or those Sackman trucks approaching, and they would honk those horns so loud that people just panic.
Yeah.
And then there are others, again, let's not target any particular group, but the bus drivers and conductors, they seem to be very aggressive on the road, and they would honk their horns and they would get up in your tail and they would blow. And then there are people who just sometimes step on the brake or move too quickly, and because of that horn just been blown so suddenly behind them.
Create
They
a
just
panic.
they panic, they step on the accelerator, and may just run into somebody in front. And we see these accidents happen so often that a lot of people get hit from behind. The other thing we want to speak about in terms of expanding on the safety process of driver and driver's license, whether or not we shouldn't also consider, like it's been done in some country, after you've gotten that license, you carry the L for about 6 months.
Yeah.
If you are on your own, drive
You're
on your
still
own.
in a learning process.
You're still
even
in a
though you
learning
may not obtain
process.
the license.
So if you are in the vehicle alone,
That L should be there.
Yeah.
L should be there. So.
it should be there for a while.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it happens in some countries where I inquired of it. Why are people still driving with an L and somebody there? And so on. They said because that person recently had the license but haven't gotten the experience, so they have to go through a process of driving with other persons or having the L for at least X amount of time until they are weaned out. But what you find is that somebody gets a license today and tomorrow they're expected to be an expert. That doesn't happen. And this is, I think, one of the reasons I understand they say that the police, they slow in giving license around the carnival period. Because they figure that if they issued license before the carnival period, there'll be more accidents because these younger drivers recently received license may just go into
Yeah, well, I have a license now. I could go to all events and so forth and not having the experience of maneuvering a vehicle properly because the experience you may have obtained during the learning stages is totally different when you're in a vehicle.
Of course.
Yeah, it's totally different.
Yeah.
It's totally different. Back then when I first obtained license, there was not as much vehicles on the road as there is now. You understand? There was minimal amount of vehicles on the road.
So your breathing time is less in terms of the experience.
Exactly.
You have to step into it immediately.
Exactly.
There's no time of
No, to say, well, I'm getting used
to it.
There's nothing
You get a
used to
license today, you step out tomorrow, you are expected to.
Yeah.
And this is why the process of getting the license must be of such that when you are released with the license in your hand, your knowledge, you feel so confident with what you've been prepared for that it becomes a formality technically.
Yeah. So the little 30 practices you get when in learning and so forth before you obtain that is just icing on the cake when you get into the real field.
Yeah. So we're putting some people into more expense, GT, with our recommendation.
I would say it, but it's all for the
But
good.
worth it.
It's worth it for the good. If it costs you extra more than maybe if it's 30 classes that you receive before you are able to go, for the life to get to obtain the license, maybe you should go on up to about 50. You understand?
Okay.
With a cost, though. I understand the cost. Let's
Or maybe there could be a reduced cost after you've gotten to that. Or if you've gotten the license then and there's anything additional that you want, maybe there could be some concessionary measures for you. Say, like you go to the defensive section.
Yeah.
You
That comes
get
at a reduced rate, a reduced cost.
and do the extra thing.
Maybe you get a limited time to do it, but
Right.
It's at a reduced cost.
I think
if you were given an hour, well, we do the defense, but you only get 30 minutes per class or whatever. If
We're going to have some callers when we open up later.
Probably that's an interesting direction to go, though.
That dimension, yeah.
Let's move into another stage of the program this morning. We wanted to talk a whole lot about, this morning, the pedestrian crossing, the speed bumps and so forth that we see on the nation roads. Because if we had to start with pedestrian crossing, there are lots of us, there are a lot of pedestrians who do not know the proper use of a pedestrian cross.
Right.
There's also drivers on our roads do not know, how to even approach a pedestrian cross being a driver themselves.
Yeah.
And I think I have brought up the conversation already when I did have the traffic department, and who did give some explanations. How the process of how the use of a pedestrian cross, the driver approaching, and how you as a pedestrian should signal that driver when you want to cross.
Yeah.
When you understand.
Yeah.
Give us a little feedback on that this morning.
Yeah. Precisely. But before we go into the pedestrian cross, I want to kind of bring it into a wider context, and I want us to look at with the school reopening.
Yes.
And the school zones, which will include pedestrian crossing.
Yes.
I want us to kind of envelope that whole package within there.
All right. So not just the knowledge of it, but it also plays a part of having the knowledge of how to use it.
Yeah, we're coming definitely there. So I want people, or listeners, to understand. We want to give them a package this morning that would focus on school zones, pedestrian crossings, the speed bumps, and you have some called a sleeping police. I don't know why
that was the initial name back then, right?
Yeah, and why was it called a sleeping police?
Before it was called a speed bump. We used to call it a sleeping police.
No, but the sleeping policeman
used to be the ditch, right? The ditch.
Right, but they were dual use for the ditch. One for water crossing from one point to the other, and two for slowing you down. Right. So in the context of pedestrian crossings, as you mentioned, and recently we noticed, we heard about accidents. I think there was an accident somewhere right in town by Republic Bank, somewhere around there.
Yes, where someone got hit. Was it sometime last week?
Somebody and a child or something of that sort.
There was a gentleman and a child was hit by one of a vehicle. I heard of it.
Right.
And I actually saw some videos of it also.
And there are a couple of things to that. One is driver error and driving without due care and attention could be a factor.
Yes.
The other thing could be distraction on driver part, right? On his part. The other thing is the lack of knowledge of the use of the pedestrian cross could also be on the path of the pedestrians themselves.
Yes.
And hence the importance of programs like these where more people could get to understand that even if a driver might be charged for driving due care and attention, he can be charged for dangerous or reckless driving or otherwise. A number of charges could happen. But at the end of the day, you as a pedestrian getting struck could mean a fatality, it could mean loss of a member, or it could mean that you can be incapacitated or you can be in pain for a very long time or for the rest of your life. Hence the reason why it is critically important that pedestrians themselves are aware of the proper use of the crossings. You would see the attitude expressed by some people. Let him bounce me now.
Yeah.
You see me wanting to cross the pedestrian cross. Where you going? The best way and the appropriate way of crossing the pedestrian cross is to ensure that the driver gets your attention and you also get his.
Get his attention.
He get yours.
His or her attention, and they get your attention also.
Correct. And you must, there are people I have seen before I make the point. They stand up right next to the pedestrian cross, GT, and they're going nowhere. So you now, as a driver who wants to be safe, slow down and would beckon to them that they can cross.
Sometimes I will signal to them, go ahead.
And what would they do to you? No, go ahead, I'm not crossing.
But do you get the impression
that they want to cross?
They want to cross.
Because they're standing right there where a person should be awaiting to catch the attention of the driver before going across. So one, you must stop, look left, look right, look to the driver and ensure that he understands that you want to cross. The other thing, you can indicate it to your hand and step as though you're going to cross with one of your feet so that he can understand that you are about to cross. Unless you are assured that he gets your attention, you should not go across. The other thing that people do on pedestrian cross should not be done. They try to run across the pedestrian cross. You should not.
Without getting the okay from the driver.
Even if you get the okay, you should not run. It should be a brisk walk and not a run across. And it should also be, as I mentioned, a brisk pace and not walking and modeling and dancing and fixing your hair or your bag or turning and tie your socks, your shoelace or your socks as you're going across. It should not be. Once you've gotten the attention of the driver, it should be a brisk walk across. Even while you're doing that, you must still ensure that for some reason that driver did not get distracted and press the accelerator and step on it while you're crossing. So you too must be so conscious and so vigilant that you must be looking at the driver on either end as you go across the pedestrian cross.
Yes.
I hope I make a lot of sense.
I think I get you.
And give clarity in terms of how people would get that.
The use the interpretation of it.
The other point on pedestrian crossings, there are some pedestrian crossings that are zebra crossing because they're in zebra colors, that are on the places that we have the traffic lights set up. There's a pressure zone for vehicles and a pressure sensor for vehicles with a straight white line that goes across.
Yes.
So vehicle needs to come right up onto that line so that the sensor would recognize the volume of the traffic, or that traffic is there. If once your vehicle stays too far back, it will take longer before it turns and give you the green to go ahead. And sometimes a lot of people don't recognize that. But the other thing that also happens on where you have the traffic lights, on some places you have the zebra crossing, and other places they're just the white line. I've seen it in Grenville and St. Andrew in particular, where in some places there's no pedestrian cross. So people are using that white line or that white zone as a crossing, which should really not be. There should be a pedestrian cross, a zebra crossing, so the people would understand that they can cross, or it's a place that you should cross.
I mean, you cannot blame individuals, because if someone is before the traffic light started working, it was an area they would use from crossing one side to the next. They will continue doing it.
Yeah.
Because you have developed a habit. You understand?
Yes.
Now that you see the white line alone, you know it's not the proper signage for pedestrian, and it's for the traffic now.
Yes.
But then, where does the education part comes in?
And it's a responsibility and the authority. And a driver could say that this is not a pedestrian crossing.
Yes.
He could simply say, there's no pedestrian crossing here. Where are you going? So it is saying to us, GT, that there's a lot that we need to do in terms of the safety of persons. We should not take something for granted and expect people to, well, that is something that you should know. But we should create that environment and that prominent, and I say conspicuously placed markings, writings and signs that people could understand them, and not just put them there, but there should be an education and information process through community programs, through the school outreach, so that people would understand that. I know there are some initiatives going on through the traffic department, and Corporal Paul, congrats again for the job you've been doing in getting around. We have to be collaborating on some work in the near future.
We could get him one of these mornings coming
But
with us.
yes, we will get him one this morning with us.
And talk more about the traffic situation.
Absolutely.
And so forth.
But I thought that this is one of the things that we needed to have spoken about as we go into the reopening of school. We want to expand the conversation on the school zones.
Yes.
As to how drivers treat the school zones and how people in general treat, or do we really have proper identified school zones?
All right.
Or whatever.
So, Mark, let's save that for our next segment. We drew for a break. We've not talking for a wee bit.
We can get it?
We could get it. Let's take that break, and when we come back, we continue with the conversation. Stay with us, folks. It's To The Point, Classic Radio, GBN TV. We coming right back. Stay with us.
Hey, if you don't have everything for back to school, don't hurt your head. At GBN and Flow, they're putting down the biggest back to school extravaganza right here next week Friday, the 30th of August, right here at the Grenada Trade Center. You have special and everything back to school. We're talking about uniform, books, pencil, pen, crayon, everything back to school. And you have entertainment for the kids also. We have face painting, we have bouncy castle for the kids. And you adults, you can win some stuff also. So you want to come and down here, we're starting 10 a.m. 10 a.m. I'll be hosting, so I'll see you guys there at 10 a.m. Remember, back to school extravaganza, 10 a.m. right here next week Friday. I'll see you there.
Powered by Flow, Bermuda's Biscuits, Fruit of Cool Kids, and Megaforce Promotions. Mark your calendars today for August 30th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Grenada Trade Center Annex for the GBN Flow Back to School Extravaganza. We are bringing you a day of fun and excitement with Bouncy Castle, exclusive deals, and free back to school packs for early bird attendees. Vendors, don't miss your chance. Secure your spot today. Plus, catch all the action with live interviews on GBN Television and our social media channels. Powered by Flow, Bermuda's Biscuits, Fruit of Cool Kids, and Megaforce Promotions. For more information, call 449-6886. Don't miss out. See you there.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers, to The Point, Classic Radio, GBN TV. Welcome back, Mr. McIntyre. We're talking a whole lot. We spent a couple of minutes a while ago talking about the proper use of the pedestrian crossing.
Yeah.
We spoke about folks having the adequate knowledge of what the markings indicate.
Yeah.
But we want to shift the focus a lot now to still on the pedestrian crossing, but we want to talk about the school zone area.
Yes.
You know, there are areas where schools are.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think drivers, if we could focus a whole lot more on the drivers part of it.
Yeah.
Pedestrians should also know the proper usage of those school zone areas and how adequate they should be able to use, if there are markings in those areas, indicate it's a school zone. For one, if you come up to the Morrison area, we know of the Westmoreland School. I think they are marking there that indicates that, you know, students are permitted to cross and so forth. So drivers should know what I'm supposed to be slowing down. I'm not sure for other areas around there. You may be more familiar with it than I do. But the proper usage of of markings on the road, especially in school zone areas.
Yes. So what we want to do, because we spent a lot of time this morning on the conversations. Mm-hmm. So what we want to do is to capture the information on the areas in maybe a little more. In terms of the school zones, do we really have clearly marked school zones around country? And sometimes people tend to believe the city areas of St. George is just the place where you need to have all the markings and all the things done. But as we go across country, there's again, a need for more signs, lots of signs, and appropriately placed so that people, not just the drivers, even pedestrians, could understand where they are. I do not think they are sufficiently marked areas that are designated as school zones, and if they are, that people understand what they mean. As we prepare for the back to school in September, we know there'll be a lot of children, coming. Again, it's the new school term, new semester, where younger people will be going out into the new environment, etc. And how are we preparing the drivers and preparing the pedestrians for that new phase of the education process and the commute? So the point is, we need to see more markings that says school zone.
Yes. And
what is the expectation, or what are the expectations of drivers when they are approaching a school zone?
Yeah.
What is the enforcement measure, and what are the penalties? And I think that the penalties should be different in terms of infringement in other places than we would have them within a school zone. For the drug enforcement, narcotics, etc., mm-hmm. the penalties for selling or having narcotic substances within a school zone is a greater fine and penalty than it is generally.
Yes. And
I think the same should apply for drivers and accidents and other things happening within a particular school zone. And there are regions and there are countries across, you dare not infringe or drive in a particular way or do particular things when you get within a school zone. And I think it's high time that we get to that point. We are jeopardizing the lives of our younger ones, and we happen sometimes to have to put wardens in those areas. And having mentioned wardens, we believe, in addition to the signs that put up, that there should be wardens, not necessarily the general traffic wardens, but maybe they could be assigned to the schools or particular zones or areas where they can help the children to cross safely during the periods of going to school and coming from school, and even during the time of the break when they would need to be moving from one point to the other to get certain things done.
Yeah, they could be like temporary employed to do that at this particular period when schools at morning or maybe after schools, where these people are allowed to be there to help direct the children to cross the roads if they have to cross, or just maybe aiding in terms of stopping the traffic if there's a bus that drops off. You understand, to help the children get off and on and off safely.
Yeah,
You know?
and the focus really would have been on how we care for our next generation, and I really want us to put the mirror on the school zones, all of the things that should be included within a school zone. That would be the pedestrian crossings.
Yes.
Are they well marked? Are they well maintained? Do we have people to teach and show the students how to cross those areas? Do we have the sleeping policemen or what you call sometimes the humps
Yes.
before or approaching those school area zones and so forth? And what do we have in terms of the penalties and other things that would be awarded to people if they do not adhere? And I think it's high time that we step up and move to that next level where our drivers should understand that when we are approaching a school zone that is clearly marked, so we want to see those markings outside enough.
Yes.
If it is like at 25 yards or 75 yards outside, that's the demarcation school zone ahead.
Yes.
That is clear enough. And not just during the day, but it should be reflective or otherwise or lit so that you would understand even at night that this area here is a school zone. And we're going to the point where sometimes we have extra classes or we have late sessions and so on. And people need to be aware that this is a school zone and I must enter that place with extra caution. If we have to prepare our next generation, we have to prepare and cater for them holistically.
Yes.
And the school zone is one of the ways in which we can do that. Fixing the pedestrian crossings, ensure that they're always painted. The speed humps and so on, that they're always painted, clearly marked. And
if
so
there isn't any, should we have them erected? You know,
Yes.
I think for the humps could do help a whole lot, especially in areas of school zones. Sometimes it impedes the traffic in certain areas, but if there's those humps are placed, especially where school zone, it will help to slow the traffic down.
of course,
You know, especially where the school zone.
Right.
Some folks complain about it slows the traffic down even more.
it should. That's the intention.
You know, sometimes it slows traffic when they could have aided having the traffic move a little faster. But if there's a school zone, one being there would certainly help to ease any problems that could occur instead of, you know, issues happening on the road.
Yes. So as we prepare maybe to entertain a few callers, what we want to focus on, we would love to get the feedback on the maintenance processes. Is there a maintenance process for our pedestrian cross, our sleeping policemen, or those ditches and so on? You see in some areas that are concreted and they're not painted at all.
Yeah.
If you drive with that strip of road between, I think by Pigman coming from Montparnasse to go on to by Roger up in St. Paul's, there's a back road that goes up into that area.
Yes.
And I drove to that area one time with my little car, man, and it just dropped into that thing, like people say, boodum. That's exactly what happened, man. And I could feel the impact on
Because you're not paying attention, especially
because it's not marked.
The depth of it also.
And the depth of it.
And it's not marked.
So if it's there, it's not marked, and the depth of it is gonna affect. And this is why we keep spending a lot on bushings and joints and everything else, because
I know the feeling
of those kind of things. So I want the feedback or the contributions on the maintenance processes. Are some of these humps really necessary? And the final thing, is our enforcement measure, and are the penalties adequate or otherwise, or are we vigilant enough to ensure that the systems are really being...
So I maybe want to ask you the question. Do we continue to see of course, the problem occurring in terms of drivers speeding on the nation's road, especially school zone areas and other areas? Is it because of the lack of penalties, you know, being implemented on these drivers who see it as, you know, maybe I could pay $100, you know, I could pay $100. If the penalties are more stiffer, especially for drivers who continue to break the rules when it comes to that, do you think maybe much more stiffer penalties being applied could probably slow down the rate that individuals go, or even helping the drivers to drive with more due care and attention themselves?
It has to be a combination of things, but you hit the nail right. I think penalties has to be a deterrent.
Yeah.
a lot of times it happened to speak about the guys who are pulling the road or racing along and so forth. And most of the times it happened to be the drivers are often not the owners, and so sometimes are the conductors.
Understandable. So it's not mine.
Not mine, but they're racing, and they said sometimes the owners just say, bring me $600 a day, that's all I want.
Yeah.
And the rest is yours. So
I want to triple that 6 if it happens, right? If
that's
it's possible.
Yeah. And so they just speed along. And so when they get a ticket and otherwise, sometimes it goes back to maybe the owners, and the owners sometimes don't care less about it. But I think, yes, the penalty and the rate and what kinds of penalties are assigned to those offenses should really act as a deterrent. Yeah. But in general, I think the enforcement will lead to bringing people to pay face penalties.
I think if there's stronger penalties, individuals will be feared of wanting to spend it.
Yes.
Because most of the penalties now is what, a little $100, a little $150,
$150, $350, $500, and so forth.
But sometimes it doesn't even get up to paying that maximum. You understand? But if folks are, when they commit these things on the road, and they're allowed to pay the maximum, I think it will be a deterrent.
Yes, and the law allow flexibility and discretion with the magistrates, and so they do have that measure of discretion to give maximum or below maximum penalties. A lot of time they do allow some level of flexibility. But before we even ever conclude the program this morning, I think the concern of the markings of pedestrian cross and speed bumps across the country, there has to be a concerted effort across the nation to maintain them, to mark them.
Sometimes it takes too long to get them replenished.
From
time to time.
And it doesn't have to be just the Ministry of Works and Police. I think there could be a program of zoning these, and you can have either community responsibility, you can have those community watch, citizen advisory bodies, and so forth.
Particular schools
they can take up the responsibility,
and
corporate Grenada can come through and say, listen, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pedestrian cross within our zone. We are going to contribute X to ensure that it is maintained for the safety of all of us.
Adopt the maintenance of them.
Of course.
Just like that.
And the maintenance of safety.
So that we do have a caller coming in. We've been having some issues with our WhatsApp lately. I hope it's up and functioning properly this morning. Let's try to get our first caller. Caller, good morning and welcome on your live.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Telesford, and Mr. McIntyre. So,
bit of an issue with the WhatsApp. We've been having that issue for a couple of days now in terms of the breaking up.
Yeah, there's a crossing in front of Woodland already. But I'm wondering if that one should be put just that crossing by Glen's garage to go up that road towards Top Belmont, because a lot of children go to spring school and they traverse that road. I don't know how.
Caller seemed to be breaking up such a wee bit, but I'd love to entertain the caller. But I think she was talking about the Glen's area. I think there's
the Glen that lead up into Springs.
Yes, if there's the need for a pedestrian cross around that area, she's saying. Yeah,
one of the things we must admit that the police have been very receptive in terms of recommendations across. When people mention certain things, they can't see everything themselves. Yeah. But I think when the recommendation come across, and people maybe should not just wait. I think our program is an avenue for people to be able, because they don't have access to getting the issues aired a lot of times. And I think this is where we are appropriately placed to be able to listen to the concerns of people and channel them across. Right. So yes, that is a good recommendation.
But there's one in the area, but it's not precisely where the caller speaks of. It's a little further up to the road. There's a bus stop on the opposite side of the road. So there is a pedestrian cross there. So when you cross, but then you still have to be on the road technically before you get to that part of it. I think that's maybe where you need to have that probably rectified. Let's entertain our caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome. You're live.
Yes, good morning. Again, because of the ill discipline of the bus drivers, this lady is calling for a pedestrian crossing by Glen's, but there's a pedestrian crossing right by the bus stop in that area. So you drop from the bus there and you cross the road properly, right? There's one by Foodland as well. So I don't see the need for it to move to by Glen's, right? It's just that the bus drivers need to be more disciplined, and the passengers also have to be disciplined to know to drop on the bus stop, and then they cross the road safely on the crossing. I, as a driver, seeing somebody struggling to cross the road in front of Gleens with a pedestrian crossing right there, I am not stopping. I am not stopping to endanger myself with another vehicle stopping behind me or running into my back. And there's one right there. So people need to learn to use the crossings and be more disciplined. Thank you.
Mr. Mack, I just want to say this to the caller, but I think it leads to us as pedestrians. Folks like to stop wherever their destination lies for some reason.
And park right where they live.
Right where they live. So you living right there. It's not the bus stop could be just close right there, but you feel, well, hey, because I live here and the bus stop is there, I want to stop where I live.
And the gap.
And then the bus driver sometimes they accommodate. Yeah. You understand? They will stop right there also. So that's
a strong point by the caller.
Let's take another caller. Caller via WhatsApp. Good morning. You're live. I hope we get a better connection with you. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, and how are you?
Not too bad. Go right ahead, please, sir.
Right, so very informative program. But just to go back on the, I have two concerns, right? One, on the traffic light. I think there is a light for the pedestrians to indicate when they could cross and when they shouldn't cross. So even though there isn't a zebra crossing there, I think they have to stand by the pole and watch the light to know if it's their turn to go across. So once the vehicles stop behind the white line or just on the white line, there should be enough clearance for persons to cross if everybody respect the lights. That's one. And two, that crossing on the Botanical Gardens roundabout, I think that one that comes from, let's say, from Sir Eric Mack to Botanical Gardens to go across, as if you're going for the playing ground. I'm not certain if you have enough clearance there after you swing from the roundabout to really give due respect to people on that crossing. I wonder why they have it going across the roundabout and not high up. Because when you swing, remember you come in, the traffic's supposed to give way to your right. You cross that traffic and you're going up the lane. I'm not sure between that 2 points there if there is adequate clearance, safe clearance for persons to stop and to allow people to cross.
Okay, caller, thank you so much.
Very good contributions.
Good contribution.
It's something that need looking into. Yeah.
We do have another caller. Caller, welcome. Good morning, and you're live.
Morning to Mr. McIntyre. To the point. 2 points I'd like to make. You took a page like McIntyre says from overseas. They added 4 more years to getting out of school. Then maybe these kids are coming out at 18. Maybe should get a safety certificate and training in school, like you said overseas. And kids should be trained at a very young age about safety, as you mentioned. And the crossing guards, I think that's definitely should be. And the other point I want to make is that I mentioned before, we're all going to get old. Hopefully, we're not going to be disabled. The senior people, even the people in the government, we reach a point in time where we're not able to drive. Okay, like you said, people want to drop off anywhere. Bus wants to stop anywhere. No, that cannot happen. But with a card, what you call for elderly and what you call people who are not able to, the point I'm trying to make, people who are not able to fend for themselves. The rain is falling. You just can't stop anywhere. I agree with that. But with this card, then there's a government talking about a whole new transportation system that could be incorporated with the elderly and the government people, even police officers, when they get old, they can't drive anymore. They have this card that you assist in the rain or able to be dropped off at any place and any time. Only, I must stress, for the seniors and the elderly. Have a good day.
Thank you, caller. Thank you. Didn't get the caller too clearly, but I think I get the point that the caller was trying to make. We do have another caller via WhatsApp. Caller, good morning. You're welcome. You're live.
Good morning, Mr. Telesford, and good morning, Mr. McIntyre. If the WhatsApp giving problem, I'll get onto the landline. Mr. McIntyre, very important issues. You touch on the licensing and driving and things of that sort. The first area I want to touch on. In other areas, people are being made to write an exam, let's say for electrical.
I think we lost the caller there a little bit,
Okay. I'll call you on the landline.
Go right ahead, sir.
The driving school. What I want to find out from you, Mr. McIntyre, do you see a need that before somebody open a driving school or make themselves available to have a driving school, there should be somebody that where these instructors have to do a written exam and be licensed as if you are authorized that you can have a driving school. Do somebody just take a car, they don't check the experience, how much accident they have, then they just mark up driving school on it, and then go ahead and start teaching people how to drive? I think that we need to look at the driving school and what are the criteria for having a driving school. Secondly, I remember a little while I asked about the roundabout, Mr. McIntyre. I want to know if any headway was made on that. The one in Tempe, a pole, I don't know if this is a designated roundabout. One in Woodland, and then on Melvin Street by Lacroix area going into St. George's. Is that a roundabout? I would like to hear some things on those things and how far, what progress have been made as to the gazetted roundabout that we do have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Why you putting me on all this pressure? I did make some inquiry on them because, and not just that one. There's a few of them. We have one coming from Mount Parnassus onto the St. Paul's Road. That pole that goes around there. We have a pole up in Grande Tang in the middle of the national park as well. And even in the Woodlands area where we had the temporary pass for trucks and so on, we think that temporary. But as I mentioned before, a lot of these places that are set up, drivers do not have necessarily a legal obligation if it's not a designated, gazetted roundabout, because the law speaks to give way to roundabout or give way to traffic on your right on roundabouts. And if it is not a gazetted designated, it leads to some technicalities. And you've seen drivers come around. The one in Tempe that have been there for ages by the Coke factory. People just come from Decal area there and they just shoot straight up and so forth. And then you'd ask yourself whether or not they do have an obligation. Is it a roundabout? I cannot tell you, no, sir, that my research has given me anything positive to say that they are. I am of the suspicion that they are not, except somebody could prove differently. But if they're not, according to law, they should really be designated, or something should be done about them. Because if they've been there on trial or during the time when the road is of such state, and we recognize now that there's usefulness for them, they should become a bit more prominent and they should be gazetted. And the Commissioner of Police has the authority to make recommendation, and then it goes through the assent process and it gazetted as that strip of road or that portion is X, Y, and Z. Unless it is gazetted, it's not.
But it's been there that long. I think some notice should have been given to it by now.
It should. But again, like the caller and ourselves who raised the issue and so on, by us continuing to raise them, unless something happened where there's some legal implication or somebody takes somebody and win through a kind of a suit, sometimes we don't look into them. But that's why we are the voice there that speak and raise the issues that they should be really looked into before something actually happens.
The first point the caller to me was interesting in terms of individuals who wants to teach to drive. If there should be some process that they go through.
How I knew you were going to go back to this GT.
I just wanted to get your take on it.
Of course. We mentioned this a few times on our programs that yes, there has to be authentication and accredited processes where people do things. Driving school happen to be businesses, and I think subject to any other correction, what they're required to do is to get a license to operate a business.
Yes.
To get a business license. In terms of they being able to be qualified teachers of the process of running the school, I'm not aware of that process.
Okay.
But I know for sure, having spoken to the traffic department, the most seniors within the traffic department, they said that aspect of the whole driving school and driving, it is under review currently.
Okay.
And that aspect is part of it. I spoke to Mr. Baptiste of recent times, and we did definitely have some credible conversation on that yes, they are aware of that concern, and there are some steps that are taken, movements in that direction.
Get some actual qualification.
Definitely. So the caller is on point, and that process is a consideration, and the whole aspect of safety would be enhanced. Right. So it's no longer the state where somebody, I think, gone would be there, somebody could just jump up and say, well, and there are people who may have gotten a license last week.
Yeah.
And then you see them teaching other people to drive. Or they may just open a driving school.
Interesting.
Should be ready to do that.
All right, let's entertain our caller. We have two more callers. We'll take the first one and then take a wrap for our program.
Sure, absolutely.
Caller by our WhatsApp. Good morning. You're welcome. You're live.
Yes, good morning. Very good show, Mr. McIntyre. Good suggestions. My thing is that it's the discipline of the people, because between the pedestrian crossings, you have families, mothers are walking with their children.
Up with the caller. Caller, go right ahead if you can see us. We have kind of dropped from you.
This is and the whole aspect of.
You can hear me?
Yes, go right ahead, please. Go right ahead.
Okay, so that's where you got to. But anyway, I was just saying that the mothers and parents, they would run across the street in between the crossings. So right there and then, they're teaching the children not to use the crossing, but break the rules. You see, so that again has to be a teacher education on the public. Also, there are ads which the traffic department did and the insurance companies did, and GBN runs it, about the proper way of using the crosswalk and the pedestrians. So, Mr. McIntyre, that's a good, if you can get the ads from GBN and use it in the schools, etc. I think that's where it has to start, within in the schools with the young folks.
Thank you so much, caller.
Thank you,
Really appreciate that a whole lot. We do have one more caller. Let's take this caller. Caller, good morning. You're live.
Yes, good morning. I'd like to endorse all that has been said about the signage around the schools, and also about the discipline, and or I would say lack thereof of discipline of our people or pedestrians who seem to always want to cross at any point where they get onto the main road. And the bus drivers are not doing any. They're not doing any service in that regard. They seem to encourage it. But I have a general concern about traffic in general. Signage, you were speaking about signage last week, I couldn't get on. But what does CLOSE mean? It can mean closer. Everywhere you go, you see road close. Does that mean there's a road close by? I thought it should mean road closed. But you see the road close. Or close. I mean, we are educated people in our country. We need to do better than that. Let me tell you another thing I had. In True Blue, where they just did this new road, and there was a terrible accident there on Thursday night, just before midnight. I was already in my bed. I had to get up. There is a trench in that hole, in that road, that is 15 feet long by 12 feet wide, 2 feet deep. And all they had around it was some caution tape. Not a light, not a luminous, what do you call it, people on the road?
Fluorescent reflectors.
They don't have the cones.
Cones, yeah.
They had a cone, but the cones were used in the nighttime, the daytime cones. There's nothing illuminating about those cones. I've seen them all around the country at nighttime. 15 feet by 12 feet, 2 feet deep. Someone flashed a light to the guy. He pulled to his side. On his side was that trench. Luckily, it was a high vehicle. It's an X-Trail. Had it been a regular motor car, a smaller vehicle, there could have been deaths there. After I raised concern on a chat group, they came and they filled it up. It's been there for 1 week. There are many others all around. They just put some caution tape. It stays there 24/7. This is dangerous. We must do better than that as a country, Grenada. Thank you very much. Keep up your good work.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. GT, before we run out, you know, what the gentleman has said, it has so much credence to it. You know, that happened to me actually a few years ago.
Yeah.
I left for Barbados a couple of days. I returned in the night. They had dug a hole in the road in an area that I normally would traverse. As I came around there was this big trench. There was no lighting there. And a visitor was oncoming in the opposite. As I swing around the bend, my vehicle just showed up right next into this trench. I swung away from it as an automatic reaction. Ran directly into a visitor's vehicle.
Oh, man. That's a sad. Mr. Mark, we are a bit over time, but we have another caller. Should we entertain?
We'll take the last call.
We take the last caller before we take her up this morning. Caller, good morning via WhatsApp. You're live. Go right ahead, please.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
My concern is about that street going on Green Street there. I don't know how long, when school is like almost to open, and I'm studying the children are going to Green Street School and how dangerous it is for we adults that's walking there with that one-way traffic going there. I'm wondering how, if they're going to fix the road to the carnage before school open, because I'm so concerned about the little ones, although they're going to be walking with their parents. But as I said again, as an adult, it's very difficult to walk there by yourself. So imagine having your little one walking that Green Street Road with all that traffic. So I hope the road is going to be fixed before school open.
All right, thank you, caller.
Happy that we took that last call.
I'm seeing some work being taken place even at nights.
Yes, I think
last night I saw.
I think the intent is
they've been putting some extra time into it. So
but we could follow up on that. But I think that's a very useful.
Very good useful. So Mark, about time for us to wrap. It's about time for us to wrap this morning. Interesting conversation in terms of what we touched this morning, in terms of the school zones. We talk about the sleeping police, as you mentioned, speed humps. We talk about pedestrian crossings, the school zones, etc. And hope that drivers on the nation roads would adhere to some of the, of course, information we shared this morning, and make life a lot easier for themselves and other road users.
So people just be conscious, or there will be more children on the street than were there for the last 6 weeks. Safety first, safety second, safety third. They may not be looking out for you, but look out for them.
Yeah. All right. So that's a wrap for us for today, Mr. Mike. All right. Hey, folks, thank you so much for all who contributed towards today's program. Join us again for another program. Myself and Mr. Mark will be here next Monday, once the Almighty permits, health, strength, and everything else. We'll be back for you. But join me tomorrow for another edition of To The Point. Have yourself a good one, folks. That's where I say goodbye.